These two teams both are playing a game today, so because they are taking up some time on our television screens, we're going to use this video in the early spot of today's show. Because what I wanted to do was dive into a trade idea that has been sort of revisited time in and time out over the past year even, because the Montreal Canadiens fan base, oh boy, y'all are gonna hate me for this. We're talking about it one more time because the Montreal Canadiens are in the market for some sort of a trade acquisition, or two, or maybe even more than that. We've been hearing that they want themselves a right-handed defenseman. We've been hearing that they want themselves maybe a forward with an edge. But let's talk about a guy as well, adding on top of all those things, who is in a much more different spot than those two classifications of players. This guy is not a right-handed defenseman, nor is he necessarily a player with quote-unquote edge. Instead, this is a player whom the Montreal Canadiens actually had the opportunity to trade for at multiple points throughout the past calendar year and a bit, but he ended up staying with the Anaheim Ducks. Let's talk once more about Trevor Zegras. Because when it comes to Z, he is a much different player compared to the guys that bring an edge or who are right-handed defensemen. Zegras is a center-left winger signed to the end of 2026, making $5.75 million a year at 23 years old. This season, he has a whopping 2 points in 8 games played, on pace for about 20, which would be a far cry from the multiple 60-point seasons he had had at the start of the 2020s. Zegras has been bad. And I will say he did start out the year with 2 points in 3 games, and he had since gone on a 5-game pointless streak afterwards. But come on. This is not the guy that I think a lot of Anaheim Ducks fans were expecting heading into this year. When you look at the ice time, you look at how well he's been performing. The team cannot really score any goals in general, so you kind of would expect or hope for guys like Zegras to take charge and start bringing their own A-game into these games. I mean, look, the Anaheim Ducks have scored 2 goals, 1 goal, 3 goals, 1 goal, 3 goals in each of their last few games here, and it's tough to win games if you're only scoring so few unless you're playing off against teams like San Jose. Anyways, this was talked about on Twitter 2 days ago by Big Head Hockey, who went out there and posted the Trevor Zegras point pace by season. He was on pace for 44 points in his rookie year, 67 points in year 2, 67 points in year 3, 40 points in year 4, and this year, his 5th year, he is on pace for 20-something points. What kind of progression curve is this? Big Head Hockey asks. And I wanted to read some of the replies here. He's not a good player. He just does cool moves here and there. I don't even know how much trade value this guy has anymore, which would be a good thing for some teams to get him for cheap, but I don't know what's happening with this kid. He probably needs a change of scenery. Cronin is deploying him as a winger when he's much more impactful historically as a center, with Lindstrom and Killorn as line mates. He's the most misused player in the league. He's been very defensively responsible, but it's come at the expense of his dynamic rush offense. And so I want to give these players the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, Trevor Zegras was a brilliant hockey mind who was so poised and creative in his draft-eligible season. It was why he was taken in the 9th overall spot in the 2019 NHL Draft. So to hear that he actually has been playing well defensively, he has been doing what he needs to be doing away from the puck, he's been playing this winger position to the best that he could, even though he's better as a center, and he has sacrificed a little bit of his flair offensively to do as well defensively with Killorn and Lundstrom. It does get you wondering, okay, are the Anaheim Ducks really using this guy to the best of his ability? Are they giving him the right opportunities to succeed? Or are they putting all their chips into the other guys that already exist within this organization? Mason McTavish, Leo Carlson, Cutter Gauthier. These guys are a lot different compared to Trevor Zegras stylistically, and we have noted those differences in the past few months. Pat Verbeek was a hard-nosed player, so it's realistic to understand why he would prefer hard-nosed guys, rather than the skill, flashy types like Trevor Zegras. Which brings us to the Montreal Canadiens, because with this idea in mind, we had ourselves an article posted by Elias Adiem on HabsFanatics.com talking about how the door has opened for a bargain trade between Montreal and Anaheim for Zegras. Essentially, the article brings up the former Montreal trade idea that was out there. Hughes attempted to acquire Zegras this summer, and there was a deal in place. The Canadiens showed interest, and the Ducks were open to trading him. However, the price always seemed to be an issue, which is why Zegras is still in Anaheim today. Could that change, though? This summer, and we did make a video about this, according to some sources, Zegras was valued at Logan Mailloux and a late first-round pick. However, his value now seems to have significantly declined, as the Ducks have clearly handed over their keys to their offense to players like Cutter Gauthier, Mason McTavish, Carlson, and eventually Beckett Sennecke. Zegras is left out in a role, and it doesn't suit him. So, could we see Kent Hughes seize this opportunity and offer a young player like Logan Mailloux? Okay, well, you can talk about something else, not Mailloux specifically, but the reason Mailloux's name is being brought up is because that deal initially was in place with Mailloux and a first-round pick for Zegras around the draft. Eventually, Kent Hughes backed away from it, and we had ourselves the trade conversations into the later summer saying that, hey, the Canadiens had this idea on the table. They said no. Now, Zegras is playing worse than we may have thought. Is his value a lot lower too? Does it make the price for him all the more lessened as well? Let's say if he was costing Mailloux and a first back then, is he only costing, let's say, a first and a second right now instead? Would you devalue what exactly it is Montreal would send over to make this trade work? And if you do, what exactly is Montreal's capacity to make this go through? Kent Hughes did not want to trade away Logan Mailloux and a first for Zegras, but would he be okay with trading away just a first, or a first and a third, or a first and a second, or something like that? If Zegras is an addition to this team, screw the cap. We can talk about the cap later on. There are so many guys injured anyway, so I don't necessarily think money is the biggest deal in the world. But let's say everybody is healthy. Let's say everybody comes back. Let's say you have a first line of Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, and you have a second line of Doc, Laine, and Zegras. Or you move Doc to the right wing, I guess. Have Zegras as a natural center, have Laine and Doc on the flanks, and then you have everybody else who has been playing all right on the third and fourth lines. Armia, Dvorak, Kapanen, Heineman, everybody else rounding themselves out there, and all of a sudden there's a lot more internal competition for spots, and you bring out the best of these players because they don't want to get beaten out by some of their competition. That, I think, would be a really prime top six. I mean, just think about what Montreal has been doing with Kirby Dach. I know I said yesterday in the video that I wasn't necessarily too confident that Kirby Dach would continue to be this good, therefore I didn't pick him up in my fantasy league. Also, the spot that he is in, top line right wing, in the absence of Slavkovsky is only temporary, but Montreal, Marty St. Louis, they have this ability to bring the best out of guys, and I don't know, Zegras has not really had himself that opportunity in Anaheim. They've been kind of using him in a way that doesn't really suit the way that he's able to fully capitalize on his talents. So I do think, if Martin St. Louis were given that chance, there might be some good things to happen here. But I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Is there good reason to make some sort of a bargain trade for Trevor Zegras after his poor start in the 24-25 season? If you are Montreal, if you are Kent Hughes, what are your thoughts on that idea? What do you think the trade price should be? Were you okay with the initial trade price we had talked about? Logan Mailloux and a first-round pick for Zegras. We had already made multiple videos about that trade idea and how it was eventually steered away from by the Montreal Canadiens. If you're an Anaheim Ducks fan, I want you to leave some honest reviews about this guy in the comment section below, because I don't necessarily believe Anaheim fans will be turning their back on Zegras anytime soon. Like, nobody's going to say he sucks. Everybody recognizes how good he was and how much talent he really does have. It's just Cronin and the Ducks are using him in a way that doesn't allow him to fully capitalize on that. And I want you to let me know in the comments, do you agree with that assessment or not? The article will also be linked in the description, but for now, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.